Hello, namaste, and welcome everybody to my YouTube channel. My name is Louisa. I'm bunkered down here in my cozy little spot in the rainforest to share with you today some information that I've received recently from my higher guidance, and it's from my heart to yours as well. At these times, I know many of us are being what's called triggered, so emotionally reactive to things that are happening. I don't think we've ever seen a time in history when we can get quite so triggered as we can today, partly because so much is surfacing in the unconscious collective for us all to deal with, and also because of things like social media and our capacity to communicate with each other. So the internet is awash with opinions and information that is potentially very triggering. So I don't think any of us are immune to this, and most of us have to use computers. So even if we try and avoid the news or mainstream anything or Facebook or any of those social media big tech platforms, yeah, we're not immune, right? It's out there, and a lot of us are getting triggered. So I wanted to make a video especially devoted to emotional triggers, how to work with them, how to release them. This video is the techniques I describe are not going to work for everybody because we're all at different levels with this. So for some people, you're going to try this and it's just not going to work. So that's completely fine. I think always with these things, it's important to just give them a go, and if they don't work, then move on and find something else. Sometimes it might also involve a bit of practice as well. So one of the reasons I was called to make this video is because I experienced a triggering scenario in my own life recently, which I've learnt a lot from as I've kind of gone through the process in the last week of, I guess, integrating and healing from that emotional reaction that I had. So out of this has come a whole lot of wisdom that I wanted to share today. Part of it is my own wisdom that comes from my limited human perspective, and part of it is the wisdom that's been given to me by the Arcturian beings that I work with in meditation, who have been coaching me, guiding me, teaching me with some of these things. So yeah, it's coming from our benevolent star family, these techniques, and they are very powerful because they're using our consciousness to alter our emotional state. And the messages from the beings at all times is always about empowerment. It's always that we can actually do this. We don't need any other outside influence or person to take care of our emotional well-being or our physical, mental or spiritual, that actually we have all of the resources and power within. It's just a matter of remembering that power and then activating it and using it. So hopefully this video will inspire you to do the same. I'll relate my own story a little bit briefly just to kind of explain the technique. So I was triggered at a workplace. I started a new job somewhere, and I found that it wasn't to my liking, and it wasn't fitting me, and it wasn't a match, and some of the things that I had been told at my initial interview turned out to be not true. Now that's black and white. What I was told was not true. So without any judgment of this organization and the people involved in the story, it simply is a case of deception. And I think it's important to call these things what they are, to label them, and with the compassionate understanding that behind deception is not always a malevolent intent. I look at all the characters in this drama that I just went through, and I honestly believe them to be lovely, beautiful souls who are polarized as service to all. In other words, in service to the greater good. But we're all still working through our stuff, aren't we? And a lot of times unconscious behaviors come out that we can label as deception or a violation of some sort. So in this case it was deception. So just not a series of non-truths about what would be required of me in the job. So within a few weeks this became apparent to me, and I raised my grievances, and I'm not going to go into a big long story, but suffice to say, a pattern that I'm very familiar with in my life came out, and that pattern was the organisation denying what I had presented, then blaming me for what was occurring, and then punishing me by ostracizing me from the organisation and withdrawing all contact. So in psychological abuse, that's called stonewalling, when somebody just completely withdraws and won't respond. So in the meantime, I was trying to conduct myself to the highest degree of respect, loving kindness and truthfulness as I could. So of course, when that happens and you're doing your absolute best to resolve something, and you get treated in a way that can be perceived as what felt like punishment, then the final chain reaction occurs in me anyway. This is something that's part of my patterning, which is self-punishment. So I felt the temptation to go into self-punishment, which in the past was quite severe for me. So the feeling would come up of wanting to hurt myself, self-harming myself by cutting or other means of hurting myself, or a suicidal impulse, or even just violent kind of a sense of violent hatred against myself, like a wanting to annihilate my being. It's a bit hard to describe the feeling, but I guess that's the best way of putting it. So so this pattern I'm very familiar with, because this pattern was exactly the same pattern of injury to my spirit that I had experienced when I exposed my own feelings about my family of origin a few years ago. And again, my story, let's just call it, I'm seeking to use as neutral language as I can. My story was denied by my family, and then I was blamed for that story, and blamed for whatever consequences came of my story, and then punished by stonewalling. So it led to an estrangement, basically a family estrangement. It was very, very painful to go through, and it led to self-punishment of the highest degree. Like, I went through a couple of years of like quite serious self-harm and overdosing attempts, and just a really, really strong reaction that I was to blame. And it's kind of, those extreme reactions are part of a complex that quite a number of people develop when they haven't had secure attachment in the family as a baby, as an infant, and it's called insecure attachment, and can develop into a complex trauma disorder such as the one I had, which was called borderline personality disorder. But again, the labels aren't really important. Suffice to say that this was a pattern from my childhood, and so there was that component. So the trauma that I was experiencing, or the experience, let's just say that the negative experience in this current time period, was around work. But I linked it back to the core trauma of my childhood, and I can see that I was revisiting this old pattern, and I was being tested in a sense to see how I would respond and react. And then the other thing was that there's also a collective experience going on. This story of mine was linking into a collective experience, and sometimes when I tune into the collective story that's going on the planet right now, we're finding that there are a number of people who are standing up to the mainstream story that's been given to us about coronavirus and various other things that are happening on our planet, institutionalized control, let's just say. They are bringing forth their opinions and grievances about what's happening, and then there is a blanket kind of denial of those grievances, a blaming of those people who are raising the concerns by calling them anti-vaxxers or conspiracy theorists or anti-maskers or whatever label that want to be given to those group of people. And then there's a punishment being tried at any sense, like a social punishment of social shaming, or punishment, suggestions of things like withholding travel from people who don't get vaccinated for coronavirus, or just stories kind of floating around out there of these things that can happen. And there are actual punishments that are manifesting right now, such as being fined for not wearing a mask. So that's happening. So this is on the collective scale, and I'm only offering these stories for you right now to unpack this method that I'm about to share with you for assisting with your own emotional trauma. So these things that I'm describing may not be a trigger for you, but let that example just kind of bubble away there while I describe the steps. So what was happening basically is I was trying to unravel my own feelings about all of this. The Acturians assisted me by giving me a kind of a step-by-step method to unravel the trigger and to heal from it. And the step-by-step method is this. The first step is, so when you get triggered, the first step is to ask yourself, how is this connected to my past? Right? And it will be. It invariably will be, because you're having a strong emotional reaction because there was some pain, there was an injury, that happened in your past. And there might be a long, long line of these very similar types of injuries that happened that all stemmed from a core wound that you experienced. So this question, how is it connected to my past, is really important whenever we're faced with a strong trigger, because otherwise we can kind of send ourselves around in circles trying to resolve the drama that's happening in the present without fully understanding why we're so upset about it, right? So let's say, for example, I hadn't done all this work and I wasn't aware of my core wound in childhood, and I got this treatment, I guess, from this organisation where I was working. I could easily have, I don't know, had this strong emotional reaction to hurt myself and then beaten myself up even more for having that strong reaction, right? Because it seems out of proportion to what was happening. Yet when I understand how it's connected to the wound that I carried as a child, it makes perfect sense why I would react so strongly with so much deep hurt. And then I can have compassion for myself, right? So story is to me, one of the most empowering tools you have to work with on your recovery journey, recovery from whatever it is you're recovering from. When you can contextualize it, when you can have a story that really makes sense to you and has meaning, then you can be relieved often of the burden of feeling like you're crazy or mad or silly or overreacting or too emotional or too sensitive or whatever it is, whatever labels you give yourself. You can be relieved of that simply by uncovering the history of why you might be reacting that way. Right, so that's step one. Step two is then to go into the collective, right? And to ask yourself, how is this connected to the collective? So first was, how is it connected to my past? And now, how is it connected to the collective? Because we are all fractalized versions of the greater human psyche, the human soul. Humanity as a whole, we're individualized aspects, just like the cells in our body are individualized aspects of our body, right? We then are individualized cells of the human body and actually the planetary body. Human beings are the mind of the planet, the consciousness of the planet in third dimensional expression. So animals and plants also hold consciousness for the planet, as do rocks, trees, everything does. But the third dimensional plane, which is of thought and idea and story and emotion and the things that we know human beings to have that are different to animals, that's the third dimensional expression of humanity for planet Gaia. So, based on that, how are you reflecting in your individual world the collective experience? What's going on in the collective that ties into your experience? Because while you are healing for yourself, you are also healing for all of us. All of this work that we do is then reflected in the greater consciousness and is then available for all of us. We have this thing called a collective unconscious, as Carl Jung noted 100 years ago. But more and more work is now being done to understand that in terms of scientific models such as quantum physics, understanding how there is a universal intelligent field out there that connects all of us. And another, different, what would I call them? I suppose structures of thought almost will express this in different language. So science might use quantum physics to express this in language, but spirituality often expresses it in terms of the Akashic records. So this filing system of all memory, all experience that's ever been had and ever will be had is stored in what is called the Akashic record. It's a different way of describing the quantum field of intelligence. So you're always tapped into this, and you're always serving it. Whatever you're doing, you're always in service to this Akashic record. You're always having your experiences and kind of sending them back to the library for recording, and then for other people to draw on that experience that you've had to assist with their life. So you might not consciously be doing this, but you are able to actually download a lot of that information, or eventually all of it, you know, depending on how evolved you are in your consciousness, how expanded and open you are to receiving it. So you're doing this work for the collective. So how is your drama connected to that collective? The third step is in meditation, so to relax and go into a neutral state of consciousness. What you want to do is to imagine all of these three levels and pull in the emotional content of those three levels. How do you feel emotionally? And really, really conjure that emotion within yourself. And then the fourth step is to imagine, this is still the third step. You're pulling in the emotions and you're containing them in a sphere. So in your meditation, you imagine an orb or sphere, and inside the sphere are your emotions. And how I do this personally, I've got some friends, sorry, my chickens are in the background again. How I do this is I can see like a smoky, swirly white, a white smoke swirling inside the orb, and I imagine my emotions as colors within that white swirling smoke. So if it's negative, of course, it's going to be the yucky colors, isn't it? It's going to be the browns and the gunky dark purples and blacks. And that's what I imagine swirling around. And I try to, you can do anything you want. You can imagine pictures in there, or shapes. The colors might feel intuitive to many of you. So imagine all of those emotions that you're feeling about these situations, your core trauma, what's happening in the present and the collective. You bring them all together, you're integrating them right into the now moment in the sphere, and you hold those emotions there in your mind. Okay. Step 4 is to imagine source light, pure white light or golden light will work as well, pouring down over that sphere, infiltrating that smoky white light, or whatever color it now is based on the emotions, and penetrating every atom of it with this beautiful pure white healing light. And you just keep imagining that, keep breathing and imagining that until all of the emotional content clears. So you will see the horrible colors dissolving and becoming white again, or you'll see the images that you put in the sphere dissolving. Right? This white light is so powerful, it dissolves anything that's negative. So you do that for your emotions. That's your emotions in the sphere. Step 5 is to work on your thoughts, because emotions and thoughts are intricately entwined, right? Every thought we have creates an emotion, and our emotions are based on our thoughts. So the story that you're telling yourself about this triggering situation, the words you're using, the thoughts you're having, they have an energetic output, if you like. They have power, really, and they have power to work with the emotions to manifest a reality. And with a trigger, the most obvious manifested reality is that you feel miserable. So you feel anxious, you feel down, you might want to hurt yourself, you might want to go and drink a bottle of whiskey, right? Whatever it is, you're going to manifest some sort of a behavior based on the combination of your thoughts and your emotions. So not only do you want to cleanse your emotions, you also want to cleanse your thoughts. So to do the thoughts, sorry, just got to rearrange myself. To do the thoughts, I want you to imagine a Merkaba shape. This one's a little trickier, and I'm going to put a picture up on the screen to assist you with this. It's basically 2 pyramids, one that way and one that way, or like the Star of David symbol, and then in the third dimension. So it's a structured, it's a very powerful geometric structure that we're using in this exercise to depict the structure of thoughts, because your thoughts create the structure around your reaction, whereas your emotions are kind of unbounded and unstructured. They just are. They exist in the sphere. That's why we use the sphere as the symbol for them. So we have the Merkaba within the sphere. And now I want you, with those triangles, with the Merkaba, to imagine your thoughts in there, to put them in there. All of the storylines, all of the old he said, she said, this happened, da 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 da, I'm no good, they're no good. It doesn't matter who you're blaming. If you're blaming yourself, if you're blaming them, if whatever your stories are, think words here, think language. You're going to put them into that Merkaba. You might just put the words in, or again it might come up as colors. It doesn't matter how you visualize it. So once you've got all of your thoughts in there, you do exactly the same thing as you did with the emotional sphere. You allow the healing white light to penetrate that Merkaba. Bring it down from the source. Bring it down from up, right? Because we're always like in our linear 3D earthbound realities, we imagine the higher dimensions as being up. So bring it down from up and allow it to penetrate that Merkaba. And wait until, be patient with yourself, wait until both the sphere and the Merkaba are like pure white light, both of them. The Merkaba contained within the sphere, your thoughts and your emotions are now whole and healed and pure. Okay? So that is, that's the process. And then the Acturians have also given me a verbal command for this process, which I must admit, when I first did this healing, I didn't use this command. I just did the exercise I've just described to you. But it was only later, when I was actually writing this out, that I kind of got some channeled information from the Acturians that this command will really help. And it always helps to say things out loud. You are commanding from the place of your center and your sovereignty what your reality will look like, what your personal experience of reality will look like, right? So we're not at the stage yet where we can just click our fingers and, you know, how we live in, I don't know, a tree house or some other fantasy location that we want to live in. We're not manifesting that fast on this realm, but we are manifesting. We are manifesting all the time. So the influence of our thoughts will have often quite subtle expressions in reality, sometimes very dramatic. Like for many of us now, our manifestation is getting faster and more obvious, but it's still manifesting whatever you're doing. So you verbalizing it, using the power of your words and the power of your throat chakra to speak your truth, to speak what you want, is a powerful practice in and of itself, whatever you're doing. Whether you're, setting an intention for something you want in life, or whether you're doing a healing like this. So this beautiful command that the Acturians have given me is, I command all negative emotion, thoughts, associations, stories, attachments, and energy to be cleared from me now. I command this for my own healing and for the healing of the collective. I command all patterns of perfection, truth, love, wisdom, compassion, power, and joy to be reinstated within my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies now. I command this for my own healing and for the healing of the collective. I am healed, I am healed, I am healed. And so it is. So I'm going to post that down below in the YouTube link, and also at the end of this video I'll just type it out as well and pop it on the screen for you. So something like that anyway. That's what the Acturians shared with me. They're limited, they're bound by my consciousness and the words that I have at my disposal. So that's something that felt true for me and resonated with me. And I think with a lot of this work, it's even better if you can find your own words to express it. You've got to find words that feel really true to you. That's the key with affirmations. Yeah, and then okay, so that's kind of like the healing technique. I just also want to quickly share with you. It's along the same lines as this triggering scenario that I just described, but sort of an adjunct to this whole video, and that is the concept of empathic triggering. So a lot of us are, very sensitive souls, and our sensitivity is growing all the time as we expand and become more aware and more in tune and live more from the heart. And one of the, I suppose, side effects of that is that we can start to empathically take on the collective traumas and negativity and energy that's out there at the moment. So I think for me, as I said before, one of the steps is to ask what's happening in the collective. And for me this past week, not only was I undergoing a personal trigger, but I also knew that I was picking up a lot from the collective, that there is, some really dark stuff going on at the moment and some dark emotions with it. And so last night I had a really interesting dream about a roller coaster, and I was on the ground. I wasn't in the roller coaster. I was safe on the ground, but I was looking up at the sky and I saw this horrible roller coaster, like the worst roller coaster my mind could possibly imagine, right, very, very, very high, and this horrendously dangerous looking curves that the carriage would have to follow. And I was watching the roller coaster go up, 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 and it was about to sort of slip down. And I remember in the dream feeling like so full of terror and that sickening feeling in my guts that you get when you go on a roller coaster. I was really embodying all of that, but I was safe on the ground, right? And so the message from Spirit really was around, hang on a minute, you're not on that roller coaster. You're picking up what other people are feeling, and you don't need to go through that because you're safe on the ground. So this is a message for those of you who are actually fine at the moment, really, but you know people that are not fine. And even if you don't know personally anybody that's not fine, well, you only have to, look on the news or look on social media and see that there are many people suffering on the planet right now as we go through this transition. The people who are really doing it tough are on that roller coaster, and it's an emotional roller coaster. It can make one feel really sick, really terrified. So, that's their journey. They have chosen to be on that roller coaster right now. It's part of their soul growth, and they may not be conscious of that. They probably aren't if they're on the roller coaster. It's those of us that have kind of gone through our own dark night of the soul, that have got to a place of equanimity within and balance within, that are probably not going to be on the roller coaster. In a sense, we get spared, and also partly because we're consciously creating our realities. So if you're not doing that, then you're going to be sucked into the manipulated reality that is trying to create fear in people. That is a roller coaster. It's like a roller coaster that's been constructed for humanity to ride at this time. And, you have a choice. You don't have to ride it. So, but even the starseeds, even light workers, even evolved souls, even people who've done their work are looking at that roller coaster and kind of going, oh my God, are they going to make it? Is it going to fall off? Like, it's just horrible to watch. So, so just note that if that's something that you're going through, if you feel like you're empathing the collective frequencies at the moment, you don't have to suffer in this way. We can step back, we can recalibrate, we can do these kinds of techniques that the Actuarians have shared today, and we can keep our balance. And I think it's super important that we do, because every human being right now on the planet that is balanced and in their heart, staying in their heart center, is an anchor for the higher frequencies. It's an anchor for the new world that is coming. So we need all of you. And if you're not in that place of equanimity, if that is just like way out of your reach right now and you're tossing and turning on the waves of the wild seas, or you're on that roller coaster, then your work is to surrender to the emotional ride, in a sense, to own what's going on for you and to ask questions, penetrate deep. Don't just mindlessly go through this experience, okay? Open yourself up to what's happening on our planet. Ask really good questions about what is true and what isn't, and ultimately consult your own heart. ultimately ask, what do I think is true? What is true for me? What is the right action to take in this moment? We're going to be protected if we do that. Each of us are going to be protected because the energies now on the planet are so light infused, that those that are serving the light are being supported naturally, just organically. That's how it's working. So, ask yourself those very deep questions. What kind of a world do I want to create? And which, it's not about sides, but it's more about levels of consciousness. What level of consciousness do I want to experience? Because we have choices. Everything is about your perspective and how you choose to see things. So again, this exercise can help you unravel perhaps the negative way that you're seeing something. There's always a higher perspective. There's always another level that you can go up and look down and go, oh, okay, it actually makes sense, and I can calm down, and I am safe, and all will be well. So yeah, for more information on that, visit my last video I made called the 3D and the 5D self, or the higher self, I think it was called, how to access the higher self, something like that. That'll take you on another journey with that subject. So all right, well, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate anybody that comes along to my channel and takes the time to work on themselves, or just to hear what someone else has got to say. That's all I am. I'm just someone else with some information to share. So yeah, take care, and if you want to connect with me, feel free to visit my website and email me. Okay, blessings, blessings, blessings as always. May you not be on the roller coaster for very long. If you are, may you be safe on the ground. May you be well wherever you are. Sending lots of love. Namaste.